Welcome to this new episode of our Bible reading and reflection. Today we turn to the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verses 1 to 6. This passage tells the story of the first temptation and the beginning of humanity's fall from grace in the Garden of Eden. We meet Adam, Eve, and the serpent as they confront the command that God gave about the tree in the middle of paradise. As we listen, let us consider how these events speak to challenges, choices, and trust in God's words. Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any of the beasts of the earth, which the Lord God made. And he said to the woman, Why hath God commanded you, that you should not eat of every tree of paradise? The serpent here is described as more cunning than any other creature God made. He approaches the woman with a question meant to create doubt about God's command. Instead of encouraging trust, the serpent raises suspicion. By twisting God's words, he tries to confuse and challenge the boundaries God set for Adam and Eve. This moment marks the beginning of temptation, showing how sin often starts with questioning what God has truly said. Genesis 3:2. And the woman answered him, saying, Of the fruit of the trees that are in paradise we do eat. Eve replies honestly, showing that she understands most of God's command. She affirms their freedom to enjoy the fruits of paradise, except for one tree. Her response reminds us that God's generosity is real. He gave so much with only one gentle boundary for their good. This sets the stage for how temptation can twist a gift into something restrictive, ignoring God's abundant blessings. Genesis 3:3, But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of paradise, God hath commanded us that we should not eat, and that we should not touch it, lest perhaps we die. Eve explains that there is one tree they must not eat from or even touch, or else they might die. Here we see that she knows God's command, but she adds to it by saying they shouldn't touch it, although God's original command was only about eating. This small change shows how tempting it can be to exaggerate or misunderstand God's instructions, making his loving boundaries seem heavier than they really are. Genesis 3:4. And the serpent said to the woman, No, you shall not die the death. Now the serpent boldly contradicts God's warning. He directly tells Eve that she will not die if she eats the fruit. With this lie, the serpent seeks to break Eve's trust in God. Temptation often begins this way, by promising good things without consequences. The serpent's words show how sin can start with doubting what God has taught us about right and wrong. Genesis 3:5. For God doth know that in what day soever you shall eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. The serpent claims that eating the fruit will open Eve's eyes, making her like God, knowing good and evil. He suggests that God is keeping something valuable from her. This plays on human pride and curiosity. The temptation is not only about the fruit, but about reaching for independence and power. This verse highlights how temptation can twist truth and make disobedience seem attractive. Genesis 3:6. And the woman saw that the tree was good to eat, and fair to the eyes, and delightful to behold. And she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave to her husband, who did eat. Seeing the tree's beauty and desirability, Eve finally takes and eats the fruit, sharing it with Adam. This act is the first disobedience to God's command. The passage shows how temptation grows, from a thought to a longing, and finally to a choice. Both Adam and Eve share in the decision. Their actions have a lasting effect, marking the moment when sin first enters human experience. As we reflect on these verses from Genesis, we see how temptation can enter quietly and challenge our trust in God. The story of Adam and Eve reminds us that God sets loving boundaries for our good. When we question or move away from His word, it can lead us toward choices that harm ourselves and others. Let us ask for the strength to trust God and to see His commands as gifts that protect and bless us. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing for more Bible readings and reflections.